everybody. Welcome. I'm Jackie Swihart. I am the Indiana Main Street Coordinator for OCRA. Just wanted to welcome you and say thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Proactive Planning. It's not just for pandemics. We're always looking for ways at Indiana Main Street to partner with SBA and provide professional development and education to Main Streets and to really help Main Streets prepare for the future. So I am really excited about the topic today. It's important for us to pause and think about and reflect on the past year and think about how moving forward we can be prepared for the unexpected. So really excited for you all to be here today and for me to learn alongside of you. Did want to say that this is a Microsoft Teams live event. This is our first live event, which we're really excited about, but a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions throughout, you won't be able to unmute yourself and ask those questions. So go ahead and utilize the Q&A function, and then we'll monitor that on the back end of things. The session is automatically recorded, so we will be sending out a link to the recording afterward. If you want to share it with other people in your Main Street organization or otherwise, we definitely encourage you to do that. And then we will be sending a copy of the slides that Laura is going to be sharing with you today as a follow-up with the recording. So I won't take up any more time. I want to introduce our speaker today, Laura Schafsnitz. Laura is a public affairs specialist with the U.S. Small Business Administration Indiana District Office. Her expertise lies in bringing government, public, and private organizations together to share resources and opportunities to help small businesses start, grow, expand, and recover. She's a graduate of Webster University and a U.S. Army veteran. And so Laura has really worked in public affairs her entire career, bringing news and resources from the highest echelons of government to everyday people around the world. I love that. That's great. All right, Laura, I am going to send it over to you to take things away.
Hi, everybody. I am Laura Schafsnitz, and thank you, Jackie and Abby and the entire team over at Main Street and OCRA for inviting me today and allowing me to talk a little bit about disaster planning, small business planning, and in essence, in some ways, when you are helping your small businesses plan for disasters, you're helping your community grow as well. So with that, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. So what you should see first is a very beautiful blue background that says SBA, U.S. Small Business Administration. Isn't that fun? So that's who we are. U.S. Small Business Administration. We are a federal agency. We have been around since we were created in 1953. And our mission then, our mission now, and hopefully our mission forever is to help small businesses start, grow, expand, and recover. Basically what we're doing is we're working to ignite the change and spark action so small businesses can confidently grow. So what does that mean to you in your Main Street? It means with small businesses, your community can grow, your Main Street organization can grow, and we can have a stronger economy and more tight-knit communities that are going to be able to, basically everybody can have a happier life. So a little bit of history about the SBA disaster loan program. SBA disaster loans, they have been around since probably the 1950s as well. And it was in response to natural disasters, basically, that happened to communities, such as, you know, when we're hit with a flood, when we're hit with tornadoes or earthquakes. In other regions of the country, it might be hurricanes, or in some cases, it comes into play when there is civil unrest. SBA disaster loans came into play in some really kind of not so great times in American history, where communities were literally destroyed. And so the reason for a disaster loan is to, along with FEMA, is help those kind of pick up where FEMA can't can't help is to help those small businesses and those homeowners and those renters recover after a disaster situation. And in 1920, or excuse me, not 1920, in 2020, SBA also expanded the disaster loan program in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we were able to very quickly open up the economic injury disaster loan program to small businesses who are affected by COVID-19. And that's probably what you hear the most about in today's environment when it comes to disaster loans. However, just want folks to know that just because the EIDL loans or the economic injury disaster loans, this is not a COVID specific topic. This is not a COVID specific product. The disaster loan program is still there for small businesses and communities who are affected by natural disasters or an emergency situation which they need to recover from. So in that disaster scenario, disaster loans are our primary source of federal assistance. They help private property owners pay for disaster losses that are not covered by insurance or other recovery efforts such as FEMA. And what the disaster loan program is, this is our way of offering low interest federal loans to businesses of all sizes, private nonprofit organizations, homeowners and renters, usually with an economic injury disaster loan or some of the other disaster loan products. It's not based on payroll, it's based on your losses after insurance pays. And so the interest rate on that loan is normally really low, anywhere between 2.75 and 3.75%. And usually the amount of time that you're given to pay off that loan is 30 years. So it's a long-term loan with a low interest rate, which is going to help a small business or a private property owner recover and have a way to infuse some capital into their small business or into their community to be able to get back on their feet. And then they're going to be given a long time to pay that off. Also with the disaster loan program, there are some other products which help with debt relief during the time of the disaster, in the thought that some of those loans or some of their things that they have going on, those payments can be put off and they're not going to be penalized because they can't pay during the time of the disaster. So very quickly, I just want to go the different types of disaster. When an emergency happens, let's say there's been a tornado or a really bad thunderstorm that, or a flood that happened in a community, there's several different types of disaster. There's a presidential disaster, which means that the president has declared a major disaster, and this automatically activates SBA disaster products. An administrative or agency, this is for smaller disasters where presidential declarations are not made, governor's certification, Secretary of Agricultural, and military reservist. So the difference, primarily SBA comes into play for those first two, agency directed and for presidential. The difference is for a presidential, you have the disaster loans are available for physical and economic injury loss for the primary counties that have been effective. So for example, I'm not picking on anybody, but for example, if Floyd and Clark County were affected by a disaster, they would be considered the primary counties. And then those counties surrounding Floyd and Clark, which would be, say, Scott County and a few others, they would be eligible for, they would be considered contiguous counties, and they would be available for economic injury assistance as well. Now, for an administrative, SBA disaster loans are available for physical and economic injury loss in both the primary and contingency counties. That's a little bit about that. Talked a little bit about the disaster declarations, goes into a little bit more detail, and the place that really goes into the most detail, and I'm going to switch over to the website in just a second, is the SBA Disaster Loan Program. And this is just a capture of the page, but if you go to sba.gov/disaster, you're going to find this page, and I'm going to bring it up in just a second, hopefully. Can everybody see that? See the movement?
Yep, it's there.
Okay, great. So the disaster assistance, we have some really great information for folks available on this page. So if you have small business owners who have questions, or are looking to prepare a plan, or to begin planning for a disaster, or if they want information on what's available for COVID-19, you're going to be able to find it right here on the disaster assistance page. Excuse me, again, that website is sba.gov/assistance, or you can just go to the funding programs tab, go to disaster assistance, and it's going to be there for you. And that's going to give you the most up-to-date information on the how-tos, and also information on both the COVID and the declared disaster programs that are available. It's going to give an explanation of each of the products that I just mentioned. And it is also the place where you're going to go to be able to apply online directly through SBA for a disaster loan. So this is absolutely the place where you want to go. If you're in a disaster situation, and I think I know there are some counties that are eligible for SBA disaster loans due to non-pandemic situations right now. So if you have folks who are interested in those, this is where they're going to go. And if you see right here, it says apply for non-COVID disaster loans. Those are the economic injury disaster loans and the different products that are going to help those businesses get back on their feet. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Did you see the switch? Just want to make sure.
Not yet.
Okay, no problem. Bear with me. I apologize.
There is a little. And are you sharing PowerPoint?
Yes, SBA loan requirements.
Okay, it is not showing up as content for me, so you might need to try that again.
Okay.
I told everybody at the top, this is new to us, so bear with us as we learn. There it is.
There we go. Okay,
all
right.
Get
back to so with the disaster loans, folks who are eligible for it, they are for non-farm businesses of all sizes, homeowners, renters, private and nonprofit organizations. Just a caveat on for those who own farms, excuse me, if it is a COVID-related emergency, there are times when farmers are eligible for the economic injury disaster loan, but that is only for COVID. That is not for the traditional SBA disaster loan programs. Just want to keep that in mind for folks, okay? Eligibility, damaged property must be in a declared county. Some of the things that we're going to look at is credit history. And when we say credit history, it doesn't mean that you have to have fantastic, fantabulous 800+ credit scores. It means that SBA's credit requirements are lower than for a traditional loan. So folks who have maybe some more difficult credit circumstances are more likely to be eligible for an SBA disaster loan than in other traditional loan products. And folks must also show the ability to repay those loans. And again, that loan is a 30-year loan, and the interest rate is really, really low. Insurance, and this is something that I'm going to say over and over and over and over again. When you're talking to your small businesses in your community, please encourage them to make sure, check their insurance plans, their business insurance, and make sure they're covered. You know, sometimes folks, they get in a situation and they say, and I can use myself as a homeowner as an example on this, sometimes you go with the bare bones. And then you have a winter like we had, and you have an older plumbing system and an older sump pump, and all the snow melts, and all of a sudden you come home and there's a foot of water in your basement because your sump pump said, "I'm done with you." And the insurance company comes back and says, "Oh, well, you don't have a sump pump addendum, so you're not covered." Make sure and encourage your small businesses to have good insurance. Have the appropriate amount of insurance that is going to cover your losses. Because SBA, if you don't have insurance, here's one thing. If you don't have insurance, then SBA is not going to be able to help you. And in most cases, FEMA is not going to be able to offer as much help as well. So a requirement for borrowers is that they must have an appropriate amount of insurance in order to qualify for an SBA disaster loan. So they must have hazard insurance. And if they live in a special flood hazard area, it is required that they have flood insurance. So just encourage your small businesses. I can't say it enough. Encourage your small businesses. I mean, this might be something that, you know, when you're meeting with your small businesses, talk about it at the next community meeting. Tell folks to bring their insurance in. Invite a representative from, oh gosh, I just blanked on the organization. One of our partners is, hold on, I gotta find it because I'm slow like that. From Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They're one of our SBA partners, and they have, you know, they can invite a representative from that organization to come in and talk about what's appropriate, what's not, what's going to work, and have folks bring in their insurance and talk about, okay, what's going to work for me? Here is my small business. Here are my needs. Here's what I have to have available to me in order to keep running. You want to make sure that you have appropriate insurance that's going to work for your business so you can continue, so you can recover when a disaster hits. There are some other eligibility restrictions, only uncompensated losses, disaster losses not compensated by insurance, there's that word again, or other recoveries.
Sorry I wanted to make sure you're not on the screen.
Am I not sharing my screen again?
No, it went for some reason.
Oh, okay. Here, let me share again. There you go. So some other eligibility restrictions, again, for the SBA disaster loans, this is going to cover your uncompensated losses that that have not been compensated by insurance or other recoveries, such as grants or reimbursements by another party, such as the state or the county, etc. Those are the things that are eligible for inclusion in an SBA disaster loan. And if an applicant has defaulted on an SBA loan agreement in the past or other federal obligation, and in the case of a regular disaster program loan, this does include student loans, income tax, child support, or required insurance, you're not going to be eligible. Caveat on that, in the case of an EIDL loan for COVID-19, that rule has been relaxed somewhat. But in the case of a regular disaster loan, if a company has defaulted on an SBA loan in the past, or they have been there's been, you know, they've been hit with defaulting on student loans or court-ordered child support or required insurance or income taxes, then they're not going to be eligible for an SBA disaster loan. So just to reiterate, SBA disaster loans, they're low interest rate loans, they're long-term, up to 30 years. If folks are comfortable with it, they can make it a 15-year loan. It's like buying a house in that way. But they have up to 30 years to pay it off. And in some cases, you can refinance some of your prior debts. In some cases, that could mean a prior SBA loan can be rolled into that economic injury disaster loan. A little bit more information on refinancing of that existing debt. Collateral for, excuse me, economic injury disaster loans in the case of disaster. If it's a loan over $25,000, it does require collateral. Same thing with economic injury disaster loans, over $25,000 needs collateral. We're not going to decline the loan because there's a lack of collateral, but we are going to require that some collateral is put up. Okay, so how to apply, talked about this a little bit earlier. There's actually 3 ways for folks who are uncomfortable, or in the fact that in the case that they still don't have internet backup, there's always the online option. In the case of disaster loans, normally what happens after a disaster has been declared, after the folks come in and they do the assessment, that's FEMA and SBA, they do an assessment. What SBA does maybe a few weeks to a month or 2 later is they'll come up and they'll come in and they will set up some disaster assistance centers where you can actually go in and sit down with somebody to help you fill out the form. You can also download the form, or if folks have that form available, you can do a handwritten form and mail it in to the Disaster Assistance Processing and Disbursement Center, and they are in Fort Worth, Texas. Okay. Verification, talked about it a little bit. No, I haven't. I just lied. Sorry about that. So basically what happens in step 2, after you put in for the loan, SBA will contact you, verify the damage, schedule a site visit, process and file a decision. If approved, loan documents are sent, and in order for us to disperse the funds, the borrower does have to sign those loan documents. I have seen a couple of cases where, you know, folks have been notified that, well, I received an SBA disaster loan, but I never received the money. Then come to find out, well, they never signed the loan documents. You do have to sign the loan documents because the funds are not going to just magically show up in your bank account. You've got to sign those documents. If it is declined, then paperwork is sent and information is sent on appeal rights and how to move forward from there. Initial disbursement usually made within 5 days after the applicant signs and returns required loan closing documents, and subsequent disbursements are generally made in installments, matched the pace of construction or reconstruction or what have you. So let's talk about the most important thing when it comes to disaster planning is just that. Prior planning prevents poor performance. That is something in my Army career that every single drill sergeant, every single Army school instructor said to us. Prior planning prevents poor performance. If you don't have a plan and you're just trying to go by the seat of your pants, your opportunities for failure are much, much higher than if you have a plan in place. The other key part of this prior planning prevents poor performance component is practicing. If you have a plan and it's written down and you only look at it every couple of years, or you only pull it out when a disaster hits, and you wrote this plan in 1963, I can guarantee you a couple of things might have changed since the time you wrote that plan. That plan, that business plan, that disaster plan is something that you need to take out, and businesses need to take out, review, and practice. What do I mean by practice? So here's where, as Main Street coordinators, you guys can help. I would encourage you to encourage your communities and encourage your elected officials and your business chambers and your town councils. Say, hey, you know what would be a great idea? Let's see if we can put together a tabletop exercise. This way, small businesses in your area can get together, pull out their plan, and practice executing it. The more you practice something, the more comfortable you are in executing that plan. If you don't practice, you might have a plan available, and that does help. But when disaster strikes, when something that you don't normally do every day happens, we adapt and overcome, but there is that sense of fear of holy, am I going to be able to do this right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I flying by the seat of your pants? That just heightens the anxiety level. You can take some of that anxiety away as a Main Street coordinator by helping and encouraging and hosting these tabletop exercises. Get with your emergency management folks that, you know, all the counties in Indiana have a emergency management contact. They love to do tabletop exercises with folks. They get cool points for doing those. And they can put together some scenarios. You can invite your small businesses. You can invite your small businesses so they can help, you know, execute the plan that they've put into place. Because that way you know what you're going to do. What if you have to close down for a couple of weeks or a couple of months because of a disaster? Ran into this with COVID. We're getting through. But that doesn't mean that a tornado isn't going to strike. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but it's true. What if a tornado strikes? What if there's a flood? What if, you know, what if there's an earthquake? What if? You need to be able to take that disaster plan, and if you've practiced it, you're going to be more confident. Okay, I've got this. And as a community, your small businesses have practiced. They've gotten to know each other. You know your small businesses. You all know each other's strengths and weaknesses. You're going to be able to, as a town, as a community, be able to go forward and say, okay, we've got this. Here's how I can help so-and-so. Here's how so-and-so can help me. And as a community, you come together and you're able to get through a disaster more confidently and more effectively than if there's been no practice had. So some of the things when it comes to putting together a disaster plan, I'm going to say it again, and Max, my dog, is going to agree and yell about this. Insurance coverage. Have your folks review their policies. Bring in those folks from, you know, have them review their policies. Do you have enough insurance? Do you have the right insurance? Make sure it's going to cover your losses. So make sure that the insurance is right. Make sure you're paying your premiums. Make sure that it's up to date. Lapses in policies can get you into a lot of hot water, figuratively and otherwise. Some things to consider. SBA and FEMA both recommend business interruption insurance. There are a couple of reasons why. Flood insurance, especially if you're in a flood-prone area. In some cases, it can be a requirement for FEMA and SBA help. So there is a really good website, National Flood Insurance Program. They're at floodsmart.gov. They're going to be able to walk folks through that. So that's insurance. Check the coverage. Make sure the coverage is going to cover what you need. Facilities and operations planning. What's your day-to-day? Write it down. Put together a plan. What do you need? How many people do you need? What equipment do you need? What has to be running in order for you to do business? What, and this includes IT. If you are a business that has a server right there in the building, is that equipment, is that server protected? Is that server, you know, if there's a flood, is it high enough off the ground that it's not going to shut down? If there's a cold weather scare or a hot weather scare, what's the temperature like in the area that is that server is located? If it needs to be moved, do you have some place to move it? Is there a way that you can continue operations if something happens? So what's the day-to-day? What needs to happen in order for you to continue to run your business? Keep some extra supplies. As a Main Street coordinator, maybe a fun idea, a good idea is, I don't know, some of those extra supplies and hard to replace items, not just for a business, but some of those more common things, maybe putting together a disaster closet that includes maybe, you know, stop laughing at me when I say this. Excuse me, encourage your communities, put together a disaster closet that includes maybe some generators, includes extension cords, includes some of those, includes flashlights, includes batteries, includes handheld radios, you know, just some of these things that sometimes you don't think of because you don't use it every day. But in an emergency, you're like, ah, where are those candles? And going back to insurance a little bit, and this is part of facilities planning too, take pictures of all your equipment. That includes your IT equipment. You're going to need to do this for insurance. Taking pictures of it when it is operating. Make sure when you're taking those pictures, take the picture of the equipment, take the picture of the where it's located, take a picture of the model number and serial number, because these are going to be important. This is going to be important information when you're calling tech support or equipment support, and they say, well, what's the model number? It's like, I don't know, I just use it. It's an ice cream machine. They need to know these things in order to help you to not only if there's some way that can walk you through fixing the product, or if it needs to be replaced. These are things that they're going to need to know. Protect your vital information. It sounds kind of old school, but this is sometimes a good time to make paper, and I hate saying this, trust me. Make paper copies, put it in a lockbox, and keep it in a secure location that you know is going to survive any damage that happens. You can also, with those pictures I was talking about, take those pictures, all the information, owner manuals, receipts, all of those things, upload it to the cloud, cloud-based technology, and also have those paper copies. That way you're protected 2 places. And make sure to protect that vital information, because you're going to need to have it to re-stand up your business after a disaster. Communications planning. Sometimes people forget about this. Advertising is very important. Marketing is very important. This is how you run your business. This is how you have people walking through your door. This is how you receive your orders. You have to communicate. Communication is person A or entity A and entity B coming together. There's some sort of understanding, and C is now your outcome. So a communication plan in times of disaster is very, very important. People need to know, hey, are you open? Are your hours different? If you have outstanding orders, what's the status on those? You need to get in contact with your customers and make sure they know what's going on. And also your vendors. If you have if you have vendors, if you have standing orders that come in once or twice a week on X day, you know, if a disaster happens, you need to be able to contact those vendors and let them know, hey, this and this happened. So we're going to need to put off, you know, that order coming in, or I need to cut down that specific order, or I need to order more of this product. So have all that information together. Include that information in your lockbox, on your cloud backup of those important telephone numbers, those important email addresses, that important contact information, so you have it available. And with communication planning, how are you going to let your customers know what's going on with you? You don't want your customers to forget about you. You want them, I mean, they care about you and you care about them for a number of reasons. Let them know that you're okay. Offer to be of assistance. Let them know what you can do for them. Because providing that great customer service, even in times of disaster, that is going to win you more clients every single time. And also sign up for alerts with your local community and with your local officials. Excuse me. As Main Street coordinators, being able to provide that list of local officials and emergency management folks and FEMA folks to kind of know and follow, or on your Main Street social media, start following these folks. That way, when a disaster happens on your Main Street site, you can be sharing this information as well. And that way your small businesses and your community can know, okay, this is the latest from Indiana Emergency Management. This is the latest from our local police. This is the latest from our fire chief. This is the latest from FEMA. This is the latest from SBA on what's going to be available in our area. So either like their Facebook pages, follow them on Twitter, follow them on Insta, whatever social media that you're using, you know, be a good steward and follow these other folks too, so you can do your part to get that information out to your small businesses. So as a town, as a community, you can start recovering together. Contact lists talked about already. When it comes to your employees, or when it comes to folks' employees, something very important for small businesses, and as Main Street coordinators, you can encourage them as well, is have an employee message system, have good contact information for your employees, and make sure to stay in contact with them, because, you know, a small business needs customers to survive and thrive, but you can't do any of that without employees. The employees are your front and center. They're the folks who are doing the good job and the hard work in order to keep your customers coming back. So you need to stay in contact with them. You need to make sure to communicate with them. What's going on? Are we open? Are we closed? Can you come in? Hey, are you safe? As a small business owner, your employee safety is your #1 priority. So putting together some sort of message center, whether it be on a company Facebook page or through email or a telephone chain, these are very, very important when it comes to a disaster in order to post or disperse post-disaster communications. And so just to reiterate, elements of a preparedness plan are going to be the establishing the communications plan, protect the documents, review insurance coverage, create a solid supply chain, which we talked about a little bit when I was talking about vendors, plans for an alternative location. This is very important and something that you need to incorporate into your plan. And finally, practice, practice, practice. As a small business, don't just practice with your staff. That is a first step. That is wonderful. But as Main Street coordinators, again, I encourage you, put together tabletop scenarios, disaster tabletop exercises, and help all of your small businesses practice, prepare, and be prepared for any disaster. So we've got some websites here that have some really great checklists. Ready.gov is a really great resource. You can also call them if you want some paper brochures. They'll send those over to you. And then SBA.gov, we've got a really great resource guide, prepare for emergencies guide that I showed you previously online. And the Institute for Business and Home Safety, SBA Resource Partner, they have an excellent Open for Business toolkit. They're at disastersafety.org, excellent organization, and they are, they are absolutely great. And then I'm going to come back to SBA Resource Partners and how to stay connected with SBA in just a second. I'm going to go over to some of these websites that I was talking about earlier. So I just unshared. I am going to hopefully share again. Did I unshare? Yes, I did. Sorry. Trying to get ahead of myself, which is never a good thing. Okay. All right, so we're back to the websites. As I started out, we've got the SBA website, which has the disaster programs, and this is where folks can go for more information, and also the types of disaster and to apply for the SBA disaster loan products. Disastersafety.org. This is a really great website, and IBHS puts it together. They have some really great tools for helping small businesses prepare for disaster and putting together those plans. I mean, they will, the business continuity, OFB-EZ, I don't know what OFB stands for, but anyway, they have a really great product on there that's gonna help small businesses put together and put to paper or put to internet or put to the cloud a well-written, well-thought-out disaster plan. So I would encourage folks to check that out. We also just recently talked about disaster planning, doesn't end with COVID-19. My director put together an op-ed, which you can look for it in Inside Indian Businesses newsletter, should be coming out tomorrow. It's called Disaster Planning, Doesn't End with COVID-19. some of the things that I've got it up on my website, which is sba.gov.in, and some of those things that I was talking about for your small businesses, I've got a top 10 right here in this op-ed. So that is definitely something that you can share with your small businesses. Again, it's going to run in IIB's newsletter tomorrow, or if you go on sba.gov/in, I've got it right here under Business Resources and News on our district website. It's under From the Director's Desk. That's something that, you know, put that in your newsletters. And if you need me to share it with you, I can share it to you as well. Just send me an email and I'll forward it to you. And please feel free to include it in your upcoming newsletters. You know, these are the top 10 things that, you know, I know we're getting through COVID and we're doing a great job. We are in this together, been in this together, but we can't stop there. We can say, whew, that was tough. And we've made changes and we're better than ever. But that doesn't mean that you don't want to encourage your small businesses to still have a plan in place, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You never know what's going to happen next week. I mean, raise your hand if you expected to see 2 inches of snow in your front yard yesterday morning. I'm raising my hand because I did not expect to see that. You never know what's going to happen next. So helping your small businesses stay prepared is vital to success, economic success. And I think that's one of the pillars with the Main Street program, is that economic success moving forward. Some folks that can help you out locally with putting together, helping your small businesses put together disaster plans. We have our SBA Resource Partners, and they include the Indiana Small Business Development Center. We have SCORE chapters. We have, in the Fort Wayne area, we have our women's economic entrepreneurial, the Women's Business Center, the WEOC. They're really fantastic, and they know that I butcher what WEOC stands for every single time. But I love them, and I hope they love me. The Central Indiana Women's Business Center, they are in Indianapolis. But these resource partners, we have them throughout the state, and they are going to be right there near you. So what I would encourage, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint in just a second because I have a slide that covers this. So bear with me. So I'm going to unshare, and then I'm going to share again and go back to voila. There it is, SBA Indiana Resource Partners. What these folks do is I would encourage you to reach out to our SBA Resource Partners. They provide that one-on-one counseling for small businesses in your community. And as a Main Street, they are more than happy to work with you and collaborate with you on putting together workshops for your small businesses. It doesn't have to be just disaster planning. It can be anything. I know down in the Jasper area, for example, they've been working for quite a while with our folks at the Central Indiana Small Business Development Center. And I think just recently, Steve and his team put together a succession planning webinar or series of workshops to help the small businesses in that area, you know, put together succession planning, because that is something that has been, you know, something that they were identifying as something that small businesses were struggling with. Excuse me. So, you know, reach out to those small business development centers, SCORE chapters, the WEOC, Central Indiana Women's Business Center. So how do you find one near you? All you have to do is go to sba.gov and see that tab right there. Ooh, it says local assistance. and you can go ahead and click there. It's going to take you to this local assistance page, put in your zip code or put in your city and state, and it's going to pull up all the resource partners that are right there in your neighborhood. I also, once you have the slides, I have these hyperlinked to each of the individual sites. And get with them, put together some workshops for your small businesses. Again, it doesn't have to necessarily be about disaster planning, but this is something that, you know, they can help with too. They can help those sit down with those businesses one-on-one and help them put together that disaster plan, help make it work. And they've got good contacts too, especially in the local communities. So they can, you know, help you when you're reaching out to the emergency management folks, or reaching out to your city council and saying, hey, I think it would be a great idea if we put together some sort of tabletop exercise and invite our small businesses. Let them help you coordinate that and be a part of that plan. They have a lot to offer. And they have good information to help folks get ready in case of disaster. Because like I said in the beginning, prior planning prevents poor performance. Other ways to stay connected with SBA, got a list right here. You can sign up for our newsletter at sba.gov/updates. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow headquarters, but I really prefer that you follow me, the Indiana District Office. We're at SBA_Indiana. We also have a national Instagram page. Our office email is indiana@sba.gov. And I'll also put my personal email in the chat so you can reach out to me directly if you have any questions, or if you know, you just want somebody who talks a lot and you just want to see what they think. You're more than welcome to reach out to me anytime. So that at SBA, trying to type and talk at the same time, that doesn't always work. But that about does it for me. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything else? Is there anything else that I needed to touch on, ladies?
I think you covered it so well. I just wanted to say thank you for providing all of that great information to our Main Street programs. So because I am set up as a producer for this event, I've learned that I cannot see the Q&A. And so Laura, I think because you're set as a presenter, you would have access to the Q&A. So are you able to see if there are any questions that came through?
I do not see an option to pull up Q&A for me either. Maybe if we open up the mics, not sure.
Yeah, let me see. I don't think as a producer I can unmute the mics. Are you able to from the presenter side?
No.
Okay. Well, how about this? You all have my email. I will definitely be sure to share Laura's email. Conversation doesn't have to end here. If you do have questions that are general to the topics that were discussed today or more specific to your community, I am happy to collect those questions and share them with Laura, and she can provide you feedback either in writing directly, or we can set up a follow-up meeting to debrief and ask some Q&A. So thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to Laura for bringing your expertise. It is incredibly valuable. Thank you everybody for having grace and patience with us as we're learning this new piece of technology, Microsoft Teams Live. Definitely be sure to stay in touch with SBA. Thank you, Laura, for providing all of those links and resources. And we hope that this has, gotten you all to think ahead and be proactive about planning. Even though we cannot anticipate everything, we can anticipate some things and be prepared. Laura, any final thoughts?
No, that about covers it. Again, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate. Anytime you need anything else, please let me know. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me at laura.schafsnitz, SCHAFSNITZ, at sba.gov. If you have any questions, have any concerns, it can be on this topic, it can be on another topic. Just let me know. And any of you that need anything, please let me know. And I am more than willing to see how I can help. Again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks.